What is that, Nale?
Anale, Anale. Let's
Oh,
go.
Nale. Let's
Un-
go.
let's
We,
go.
we are live, everyone. We are
Woo!
live. Greetings. Yes, we are. Peace and welcome to the Sovereign Needs podcast. I know things seem a little bit switched up for you all. You're probably expecting just me, but I have a co-host, Jazira. We're going to talk about ourselves, introduce ourselves, tell you a little bit about what we do, and just tell you what to expect, a little bit about what to expect for season 2 of the Sovereign Needs podcast, right? It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. You all know me already. I'm a Hoti Maria, but Jazara, tell us about yourself.
Yes, Jazara. Born and raised in Boston, based in Boston currently. Uh,
Right,
Fashion designer. I like to say artist because I don't
right,
want to put myself into one thing because I do more than one. I'm a designer of all things, but fashion is one, graphic, some web. But the focus is on the fashion accessories.
right.
Uh, Also huh, a, a plant-based eater, life
Good.
giver, gardener.
Mm-hmm.
Aspiring to be a full farmer one of these days, traveler. But yeah, right now it's really about motherhood and my works and growing. And then, of course, my sister in here talked me into doing a podcast. So tapping into something that I wasn't that wasn't part of my plan and taking me out of my comfort zone, which is okay.
You
You
right.
Sometimes we got to do that experiment with what it is that we don't think we are able to do. So we gonna be spilling the tea on some good things, all high level stuff. So I'm excited, and it's gonna push me really to kind of
Right.
tap into certain things that I've been kind of like ease back that I ease back on. So let's get into it.
All right. Well, again, y'all, you all know me. You've seen me, you've heard me, you visited the podcast. I hope you subscribe at this point. But this is welcome to season 2. This season we are dabbling into and exploring major topics, and we're not just focused on food, we're not just focused on health of the body, but we're really exploring holistic health on a deeper level. And we really think, considering all of the components of what we are and maybe who we are. Uh, yes, maybe who we are. If it doesn't I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Once it doesn't stir up any trouble, I guess. I don't know. But and we're also going to do a couple of podcasts where we talk about, of course, spilling the tea on herbs, the scoop on specific types of foods and nutrients, our alternative, foods to meats and so on. Are they really, really healthy? We're really going to get into it and have a greater discussion. But before we get into it, let's talk about what we're sipping. This evening I am sipping on because we're gonna be spilling the tea, so we have to be sipping on
Feel it,
something.
feel it, feel it.
So I am actually sipping. I chose turmeric chai this evening, and I really enjoy turmeric chai because turmeric is really helpful for bones and achiness, and it just helps to release and relieve sometimes tension as well too. So I really like it. Of course, you have to add a little black pepper and a little bit of coconut oil. It needs that fat, those lipids,
Mm,
to actually be absorbed by the body. So that's what I am sipping on. I hope you're sipping on something good.
I did not know that about the coconut oil. Merci,
Yeah,
merci.
yeah,
I
yeah.
am sipping on some good old green tea.
See.
Green tea and green mug. I just realized the theme today is green. It wasn't fully planned, but that's what I decided to go with. Um, and honestly, I have been drinking tea. Probably I shouldn't be drinking the green tea in the evening time so much. Uh,
Right.
But because I am in production mode for the marketplace this season, the green teas was been kind of having me a little bit more alert in the evening time when I should be going to bed.
Right.
But yeah, so the green tea's been my go-to. I typically will kind of let the spirit lead sometimes when I grab my tea, especially in the nighttime. Being that my son has been getting sick from school, he's in preschool. So what I have been doing is doing a combination of mint, lemon balm, and lemongrass that I grew during the summer season. So I clipped those, and then I've been making tea. So we have like some of, since it grows every summer, we have some from like maybe 3-4 seasons ago that we're still going through, and
Right.
a newer batch. So lemon balm is really good for the calming, but also I use it just to help break up the mucus on his chest and whatnot. So that's been my little go-to. This season, I kind of spread some around and gave some to a few people.
Right. And are you using it dry or fresh?
Dry. I have used it fresh as well,
Right, right, right.
but I
This,
usually try them.
this is great. So I just wanted to pause for a cause, and the cause is to greet everyone in the space. Peace, peace, peace. Peace,
Tea.
Manuelek. Greetings, Yafe. Greetings, Arlene Adams. Greetings, Naya. Naya says what sipping on is lemon balm.
Ooh,
She's sipping on lemon balm.
yes, yes.
That's a good thing. Well, so we this evening we're going to build and like just have a little build on the body and spirits, right? And I think body and spirit was actually it came from some very tragic events that have like occurred recently, but more importantly, as I started to think about how to expand what we're talking about and how we address not just the body but how we address who we are, because again we're not just body. I felt it important to acknowledge all of the components of who we are,
Hmm.
right? What are these components? Tonight we're not going to get into the details of and the nitty gritty of some of the definitions, but I will say some of that we will be sharing with you all. So as we talk and share, this is a podcast, but we're also broadcasting live as well at times on YouTube. So if you're tuning in on YouTube, you'll find some of the definitions and some quotes we'll kind of throw up on the screen so that way we can engage and have you all think about some of the quotes and ideas that like we've been building on Gerald the Strong. So when I think about the body, right, and I think about us, like the components of who we are being just like body and spirit, but also a reflection of soul. Most times you hear, and of course mind is in there too, right?
Hmm.
But most times you hear people talk about the soul as if the soul is having, it's like the body, right? As if, almost like they're saying, yeah, the soul has emotion, or my soul wants me to do this, or my soul wants me to do that. And the truth is, soul doesn't have desire, right? Soul doesn't have desire at all. We have desire. And we have desire because desire is connected to, well, sentience. Desire is connected to senses. Desire is connected to feelings and emotions, which the body houses, which we have. And so it's really important to think about how we feed the body. And not, when I say feed the body, I'm not just talking about the foods we eat or the teas we drink. We consume things in so many different forms, right?
Hmm.
um, Television can program us. That's a form of feeding the body and
Social.
mind. Social media, whoo, don't even
We
talk.
we could dive into that alone, whole a whole segment. But yeah, there's so
Yeah,
many. Now, just to kind of like, because we're so used to saying my spirit's telling me.
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
So, like, hearing you say soul, I'm like, it's funny because we don't always say the soul, my soul is feeling this, or my soul, it's always my spirit, spirit told me to tell you.
Right.
So what are your can we differentiate the can that be two different entities, or is it one?
Yeah, no, it is. It is separate and it is different. Spirit is what like animates us, right? And
Mhm.
so it makes sense when people say, I felt this or my spirit told me. Um, and I am not confirming and saying every time you say spirit told you it's right, because sometimes it's not right. Sometimes it's your ego
Ego back.
tripping. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Sometimes it's our ego tripping, and when we ego trip, um, they sometimes we confuse it with spirits because we want things to go our way so much. We
Yeah.
want to control the situation, and many times we want to control the situation because out of fear.
Right, right.
It's out of fear because it's like, okay, I can't figure out how to get this to do what I wanted to do or to
Mhm.
go the way I wanted to go. So yeah, right. And then we start labeling it as spirit. The truth
Right.
is, I have heard some people speak about the soul as if the soul is and to a certain degree it does, because the soul is what contains that portion of purpose for us,
Hmm.
because the soul is a portion of the most high. So if
Right,
the soul is a portion of the most high that we've been gifted, then we're moving off of something, that's greater than body. And that doesn't mean that we're being animated from outside. Like, there are still choices that we make, you
right.
know we make lots of choices, such as saying spirit did this, but it's the ego, right?
Right, right, right,
Um,
right.
so and it's important to also understand too, like, spirit doesn't have a body.
Hmm.
So the spirit, actually, whatever that spirit is, it needs a physical body to house it, so that
Oh.
it can be animated, so that it's almost like a cartoon. Like,
Hmm.
if you've ever seen, and you're a graphic designer, right? So you and we have an artist here too, like another artist. We have several artists, like designers, painters, people who are into carpentry, and
Okay.
artists who paint, and yeah, just a whole lot going on in the chat. But when I think about the idea of animated, I think about a person doing a sketch, and then when they do the sketches, but then they do the sketches on a like a little flip book,
Yep.
and you see that one little sketch, every single page, once you flip it, it becomes animated. It starts
Hmm.
moving. It starts, looking as if it's touching things and
Hmm.
holding,
Yep. Yep.
pressing. That's exactly what I think of when I think of the relationship between body and spirit.
Right. You're right. What they would call a host. Like when you watch
Right?
certain sci-fi movie, they're like, oh, it has, it's a host. Um, yeah, and then like when you even think of when we talk about, spirit told me, but then there's a level of I could feel it in my soul.
Right.
Things where it's like, it's like I feel it in my soul. It's not even I feel it in my soul. And that's when you're overstanding it to be in the core, like,
Right.
depth of it. Uh,
Right. Right. It's interesting, and I think it's tricky, because when we think of the soul, we're thinking about um, not necessarily on this realm or subjective realm, but
mhm.
objective. So if it's objective, again, if it's a portion of the Most High, it cannot afford to be moved by desire and emotion, because
Mhm.
then we'll be willy-nilly. We'll literally be here with no purpose, not like not being purpose driven,
Right.
and like totally detached. And
Mm.
I will say, some of us are like that. Some of us have no soul, right? Some, not us, some
So,
have no soul.
or what they would call basically, well, it's a vessel just walking
Right.
out any level of connection, the living dead, unfortunately.
Right.
As harsh that may sound, it's also a reality, you
Hmm.
and sometimes come across certain beings, when you look them in the eyes, that's where that whole thought of the person is, they have no soul. You look at them and it's like it's empty. You don't feel any energy from them. And that's
Mhm.
some serious vibes right there. To be next to a one and not feel any level of energy or any life, you
Right.
that that's serious right there, I feel.
It
Um so yeah, that it is so many depths to it. But this is where one is able to tap into, I would say, the different dimension of a being. And I'm not used to live, so I'm like, wait, how is she seeing people chat and who's saying what? I'm just finding them out right now.
is.
Um,
They can see your finger too.
oh, when I'm moving it, yes, yeah. So I'm sorry, like I probably
No.
put it up on the screen just so that I could see it separately from looking at it on here. But I see oh, and please forgive me if I don't say the name right. Is it Yafe?
Yes.
Did I say it right? Shalom, shalom. I live in wait, is that who asked me? Yep, I live in
Yeah.
Hyde Park, close to Mattapan in Boston, so not that far from Dorchester.
Mm. Oh, yeah, she did. I missed that part. I
Mhm.
saw the
Uh,
question, but I missed the part where she said she lives in Dorchester.
yep, yep, yep.
Wow. You talk about the soulless and being able to stare in the eyes, and of course we're talking about optimum wellness all the time. No matter what topic we're talking about is connected to optimum wellness. I think it's interesting as you're saying that. I thought of the fluoride stare. If you talk about the fluoride stare, meaning consumption of fluoride has diminished brain function
Hmm.
so much, and if I I'm an educator, so there are times when that is very much apparent. Um,
Hmm.
when I'm engaging with some students, I guess it's present in adults too. And I think there are things that happen that affect that stare, that gaze, like there are all sorts of things that could influence. Again, when we talk about optimum wellness, I think it's really important to think about what is affecting the body, what is
Right.
affecting the spirit, what's
Mhm.
programming the body and the spirit, what is influencing certain things in the spirit. And you mentioned something earlier. You said you referred to the body as a host.
Right.
And I kept thinking about how important it is to consider in biology. Your body is considered the host for viruses and a host for
Right.
like
Yep.
bacteria. So and this is where when your defense system kind of kicks in, because now it's hosting something that's foreign, like a foreign.
Right.
It
Yes.
doesn't belong, you
Mm.
know. So it's so important to consider again. And think I'm going to go back to things like our environment, not just what we consume, but who we're around, what
Right.
types of places that we choose to live in. Do we have community at all? Right? And I'll pause for a cause and just ask for those of you who are in the chat and those of you who are listening to the podcast too. This is an opportunity for you to kind of share in the comment section if you're on the podcast. And for those of you who are listening live, just jump into the chat and tell us a little bit about, just share what are some things that you think actually affects the body and the spirit, right? What are some things that you think affects the body and the spirit? I mean, it could be some foods that you can think of that maybe you have experience with. Maybe it's experiences. I know you mentioned, Sister Jazira, social media and how that influences how we function, what we do, um, to the point where there are algorithms and different ways of tracking what we're doing,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
tracking it to the point where it pings and forces us to be pulled back in to that virtual space. And I think that is it's one of the things that affects the the emotional expression, I guess, and the
Mhm.
interaction, the level of interaction or diminished interaction that can happen between,
Right.
like between people.
And as you're just so I'm not fiddling with the phone with my hands trying to look at the stuff. So if y'all see me looking to my left or my right, that's me looking at the screen so that I can see the comments separately. So just working it out. I am like new to this, but I'm learning. I'm a fast learner, so I'm already getting it down pat.
Yeah,
And
you have it. You have it. Now listen. I'm over here sometimes staring at the screen because I'm looking at you, but then I remember, oh no, look at the lens. You
and
got to look at the camera.
y'all gonna get some smoke too. Yes, and
Somewhat. Oh, some smoke, some palo, palo Santo.
Carlos, you know,
My
I,
goodness.
I,
Arlene says differently or environments or different environments. Yeah,
mhm,
environment definitely, definitely, definitely. I mean, a person can walk into a room, and just change the whole energy of the room,
yeah,
change the space, change how people feel. Um,
mm-hmm,
there's some people that cannot be affected by that because sometimes
right,
they're aware of what another person's doing or they're aware of
mm-hmm,
just what has entered the room, so to speak.
right,
So sometimes it's I'm not going to say it's difficult, but sometimes it's a difference. There's a
yeah,
difference in um,
yes,
the way we all interact with our environment. I
mm-hmm,
really think having a higher awareness of spirit bodies, having a higher awareness of, just energy and how energy flows.
right,
And thinking about emotion too, and emotion being energy that moves, you
mm-hmm.
know, shifts, moves and shifts. Greetings, 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 Chief Yuya. Welcome, Baba. Thank you for joining, being in the space. Um,
You know, it's amazing.
go ahead. Sorry.
Like when while you were saying that, I was just thinking about it. Matt, you know how so when a person enters the room, people can feel the energy that they come with, or and think of the times when you enter a room after something had just happened, and the first thing you're like, whoa. You know how people would say, I could cut the tension in here with a knife. So you walk into the room, you weren't even aware of anything that was going on, and it could be a place where you barely know anyone. But because of the energies that were being exchanged prior to you getting there, it lingers without words said, and you pick it up as soon as you walk into a room. So it's just that reminder how powerful we are, the level of energy that we carry and how our emotions literally bounce off of us and affect other people or just that environment that you're in. So, I mean, just that alone should be the reminder of how careful we should be in terms of our interaction and what we're, throwing at other people mentally, without even being conscious of it. So definitely environment is a huge, that's a good example right there, of course.
Yeah.
Because we have all experienced some level of shift in an environment that affected us one way or the other.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And so I think it's important sometimes if you're not aware of what those emotions are, they will spill and leak out. And and I'm sharing this not because I came up with this, right? I have tuned into the Chief Yuya podcast, and one of the brilliant episodes kind of digs into exploring our emotions and exploring our feelings. I put a link in the description so that way like you can find links to all of the different things that we reference here during our conversation. But I really think it's important to be able to dig into what those emotions are.
Mhm.
And one of the things he shares is like sitting with it and exploring it, understanding what they are, because sometimes we suppress. And when you think about something that's suppressed, it becomes, you know, mango, janky. I mean, I think that's how they recycle things, right? Metal. They take it and they just compress it into this
Mhm.
like
Or melt it down, and it transforms to something else. Yep.
right. But it doesn't remain the same. It's no longer what it was originally.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when we think about emotions and they no longer being what they originally were, like what has it morphed into?
Right.
Know? And who has it like morphed onto in a sense? Because you're talking about being in a space and just, letting off whatever. And
Hmm.
it affecting others in the environment. So I definitely think we have to be responsible for that, and we also have to be responsible for who we connect with as friends or who we say are our friends, right? um because like I don't want to give too much energy to it, but um part of the reason why I thought that we can talk, or should talk about how our environment and aligning with certain people and choosing our friends wisely, how that can affect who we are and how we function. But
Hmm.
it could even be life threatening. Was that Robinson case that was recently, it's recent,
Yeah.
it's a big thing now. It's a big thing for some people, I would say. But I haven't like really dug into all the details because of course things like that happen, and you know what happens, they start just pulling all of
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
video and the content with some of the truth, but the reality is you can see that there's this woman who is supposedly surrounded by friends.
Right.
It's definitely connected to what we're talking about, supposedly surrounded by friends, but the truth is you're in an environment with toxic people.
Right.
And again, we attract, right? We attract as women, we water seeks out its own level. So we attract what we are to a certain degree. And
Hmm.
so it's really important to think about, okay, well, how how do I end up in this space where these are my friends, right?
Right.
These are the people who I align with. And
Hmm.
they affect you in ways that can be oppressive. And if you don't find family, I think the key to even what I'm sharing is, if you don't have family, if you do not have stable community, more importantly and above all of these, if you have no covering, no mate, no man to give you direction, then you're going to find yourself in places where you should not be,
Hmm.
right? Aligning with people who you should not align with, those
Right.
who are just there to snatch your spirit.
Yep. Yep. Hmm.
Really, really critical to think
Feed.
about who we align with. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because naturally, um, it shouldn't be the case whether you're uh let's say with a mate and without a mate, or if you know like it shouldn't be, but unfortunately we're living in a time where you have to have some level of and a lot of people may argue against, well, why does it have to be that male female thing, but or woman situation, but it shouldn't be on that level where we need that person or community in certain things to feel safe. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like example, if I'm walking out at night around the corner to what have you, I shouldn't have that level of anxiety to say, "Oh my God, I'm by myself. This is not safe." And
Right.
then to make it even worse, I shouldn't be around friends and have to go through a level of doubt, like, are these really my friend? Am I safe? Which is unfortunate. And on top of that story, I feel like that's been a reoccurring thing that I've seen in the past, where it's a situation when this person is surrounded by who they think they're their friends. And this, I'm seeing that within the community, the younger community. And it's unfortunate, that's the thing. And now here it is, this young woman loses her life for whatever reason. And I don't, regardless of what it is, like that wasn't deserving. But again, it definitely brings us to, our surrounding, who we're attracting,
Yeah.
uh, being very vigilant, and then tapping into spirit, into your soul, to really understand what the message that you're getting when you're around that person. Because a lot of times we can
Mm.
tell, I mean, plenty of time I've been around individuals where on the outside, I feel like, oh, this person is really genuinely, they're cool.
Right.
But the but comes in where I just cannot fully understand why I cannot have like that comfort or ease when I'm around a person, even though they don't demonstrate anything uh, bad about themselves. But for some reason, my spirit never seems to like want to settle when they're around. And
Right.
it's later it is revealed, and I'm always grateful when I pay attention to those signs, because I immediately put my guard up and protect myself, because I'm like, something's not right, so let me just kind of ease up and just protect myself. And unfortunately, we don't always tap into that sensory where it's like telling you, warning, you're not, you probably don't need to be there, or you probably don't need to be in this person's surrounding. So I think that's a level, again, being that this is a reoccurring thing that I've seen amongst the younger community. I think as a mother, that's something I'm like, in my thought process, raising a child, like, okay, how do I, not how, but mm, being able to tell him, like, okay, here are the things that you need to be mindful of,
Right.
your friend, when you're being around, of course he's young right now, but it's not too early to start to implement certain things little bit by little bit, because I think that's so important. um and just so sad to see that, I don't fully pay attention to the news all the time, but certain things, because it's out there on social media, it's circling around, you get a glimpse of it. And unfortunately, the platforms have become a place of oversharing. The video of this child being beaten, I don't think that should have been shared,
Right.
for her family to have to see that. But it's just the unfortunate situation where we just have to, utilize it as a reminder, of how key it is to be mindful of our surrounding and who we surround ourselves with and who we attract.
Right. 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 It's we're a woman, and so we naturally want to nurture, give the benefit of the doubt. Men are huge nurturers, right? So I'm not saying that they're not, because they're huge nurturers. To deal with some of the stuff we do too, So they are huge nurturers, but we want to lean on the benefits of the doubt so much because again, we're emotion.
Hmm.
We're emotion. We don't necessarily, and I'm not saying we don't have logic, but we don't represent that level of logic. So sometimes, yeah, if that part of it is missing, it becomes very difficult for us to take the path or take the road where, hey, you know what? I'm actually getting direction. Someone is seeing beyond, and sometimes it's not even it's an elder too. Say
Hmm.
like, listen, this is not a good situation. These
Hmm. Yeah.
people don't have your interests, right? They don't have your interests, and yes, I agree. Um,
Hmm.
that video should not have been shared.
Right, right, right.
I always say on the back end, however, it is a it is a warning. It's a warning to those, and Chief Yuya, who's in the chat, always says certain things never happen to some communities. You
Yeah.
never see or hear that this has happened to a Muslim young lady or someone who is uh, Hebrew. I'm not even going to talk about the ish ones. But because there's structure and order to how you function and how you interact with your environment. And
Mhm.
that's a reality we just have to understand. That's
Right.
true. It's
Hmm.
true.
Yeah.
It's true. Because, and the reason I tapped into that video is because about 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, or maybe even longer, there were a few there were a few videos circling about a young woman. She wasn't in Cabal, Mexico, but she did travel to another state with a group of her friends.
And
And you see her walking through. There is video upon video footage of from the hotel of her
hmm
walking around aimlessly throughout the entire night, just trying, I guess, to find her room.
hmm
They found her in a
I remember
deep
this.
freeze. They found her in
Yeah.
a deep freeze. And I said to my, and they broke down how she would have gotten caught in there. However, there are some who think that she was placed there. So like, and I don't want to get into anything
hmm
gruesome. It's like it's late night time. It's time for bedtime. It's rest time. It's a reality though that we have to see is truth. And if we don't find community, if you don't find a place or a niche where we can be safe, and that space you're talking about where you should be able to go out and feel safe, that space is in a set apart location.
hmm
It is in a set apart location where there are like the walls of Jericho, I guess. Where I'm just saying it's a space where it's dedicated, consecrated. You know who's there, you know everyone there. You could close your eyes and release your
hmm
youth and not even, like question anything. But in
Yeah.
order to be able to function that way, you have to be living on one accord with the people who you're surrounded by in that space. They all have to be aligned with like the same morals and the same standards for
Right.
living. Because if they're not, then it's gonna be two different standards. And you're
Yeah.
thinking one thing is being upheld, and it's just like releasing. I know I talked to a lot of parents who's like, we changed to vegan, but I cannot release my youth to my parents or my grandparents because they're gonna sneak in a wing, or they, you know, things like that because
Mm,
you're not seen on the same level. There's no respect for like the standard you uphold. And I definitely think if you're saying a person is community, then they're upholding the same standard. Because then there's no question as to what you expect when
hmm
like when your back is turned. When
Right.
you're not there, it's just it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's so much to talk about. Yeah, just considering that. But like I really wanted to bring it up
Yeah.
because it's really directly connected to being that vigilant piece that you're talking.
Yes. 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 Yeah. It's and that's just. I mean, it's there's so many layers to it. When we pertain that to just life in general, how the onions got so many layers. There's so many layers to it. So many different settings where we always have to have some level of protection. Um,
Mhm.
because there's always them vampire energies that's lurking. Um, yes, and so many different scenarios that can be brought up that um if yeah, there's certain communities you'll never hear that because they have that order. There's a level of order in your and when we look at so many different communities, like you said earlier, whether it's the Muslim community, where it's, what even within the Rastafari community,
Right.
each one has a level of discipline, a level of, maintaining, uh, maintaining themselves where it's already known, and that's because a huge part of it, I feel like, is because of that spiritual walk that one has chosen to to go about, um it all falls in alignment. So regardless of what creed you are, regardless of whatever it is, that's the one of the key things that I would say you'll find in common.
Yeah,
um so definitely, that's a great point right there.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. I want to jump in because we could keep going, but I do want to acknowledge everyone in the space. I think Saf Darlene said,
did,
definitely your environment. She was saying,
oh,
this is she's response a while ago. I think this was 10:08, so that was yeah, a while ago. But he says energy in a room affects the mental so much because spirits are not restricted to four walls. So we maintain the bad or good energy sense in a space based on our concept of the space we live in.
hmm hmm oh, for some reason, this comment, I don't know why, it just brought up a conversation that I had with Codwell, the brother who I get hearings from. We were having a conversation, and the topic came about calling the ancestors and being very careful being in. And it was my first time hearing like anyone say that they don't like to be in the room when libation is being given, or not libation, when there's a call to the ancestors. And the reason being was, you like, if we're all in a room together, I don't know if my ancestors and your ancestors ever really clicked, right? So if we're in that room and we're all calling all our ancestors, now they come in, we're summoning them in, and all of a sudden this ancestor and that ancestor never really vibe. Now, for me, it was like, well, that's the ancestors. They don't deal with them kind of the vibrations. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it did have me thinking, like, well, what if, you're in a setting where, there's a set of ancestors who at some point were, at war with each other, or, one is protecting if my ancestors are there to protect me from an individual that's in the same room, what are their ancestors there doing? What are they going to do? You know what I'm saying? So it brought up a questioning of, like, wait, how like, just really thinking about it, it was just like, it was just very interesting to hear that perspective, because I never heard that before. And so for some reason, when I just thought about the energies in the room, the people that we bring along with us, the unseen, how is that interaction, if there is any level of friction that may have been, from the past, that continues to be there. So it was just a thought. So, any.
We even know what type of lifestyle that our ancestors lived. You know,
Mhm.
we immediately hear ancestors and we assume they lived a life of the straight and narrow and the path. And the truth is, some of it has us here,
And
right?
some of some of these hands,
So,
we don't want them coming up nowhere near us.
right.
You-
So if you're in a space and they're being called on, yeah, the question now becomes, um, what type of ancestors are you calling on? You know, what
Right.
type of lifestyle did they live? And not just for them, but also for us, because how many of us actually know the lineage beyond maybe generation, one generation, I
Right.
should say. Because
Right.
people say, no, no. And what about, you know, yeah, I'm sure there's fighting that can happen,
Mhm.
right? Fighting that may happen. I think about, and I learned this from Chief as well, like Chief Yuya, who is in the chat, and I think one time he was speaking about masks and masks being in a room, But if you're not aware of what types of masks you're buying, the masks can represent different um, tribes, or and you
Right.
don't know if those masks belong to tribes that were in war,
Yeah.
like warring or battling against each other, or in feuds and things like that. So it
Hmm.
definitely then has an effect on you and your space.
And
You
you know
know?
what? Yeah, Yefe just made a mention about the energies in the paintings from one of the podcasts. So that too, and it's something that I even thought about. Even in my craft, I wanted to incorporate certain things, and one day I just kind of settled that thought real quick, and I'm like, let's not just throw anything up in there and then invite unwanted energies that not even being aware of. So um yeah, definitely that plays a paintings, masks, fabric, when you get to getting down to painting symbols and adding certain things, like I'm very careful about using certain things on my product, because one, if I'm not fully understanding what the meaning is, if I don't understand where it come from, the cultural background, I'm not going to just throw it on just to throw it on, because I want to be careful. I'm not, bringing forth something that I shouldn't be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we many of us look for sigils, and we're just like, okay, this looks cool, or this
Right.
represents Dambala, or this
Mhm.
represents, and you start pulling on all of these energies, but do you even know
Right. Right.
what that energy is and what you're calling forward when you call
Hmm.
the energy of the serpent?
Right.
What do you even know the fullness of it? So it's interesting, and we see people many times. People say, like, I'm going through this thing, so I need a this or a that, and it's ritual is not the first thing. Like, obedience is better than sacrifice. So
Mm,
what laws are you breaking? How are you being disobedient? And
right.
fix that, so that way the path that you're walking is a right path, so that you don't have to sacrifice and like do ritual and things like that. You shouldn't have to. You
Hmm.
shouldn't have to. Like, if we even think about scripture, and we think about the people from um, Torah, right? We think about the Hebrew Testament. The times they did rituals during the times when they were acting wrong. Like, it was totally out of order, right? Out of order. And so
Hmm.
then you had to make atonement.
Hmm.
So I think the same is true if for us now, being obedient. I want to continue to tap into the chat, because I think there's so much, and I don't want to
To make thing.
all right. Do you see anything that
Uh,
popped?
well, from when the energy in the room that affects the mental so much, because spirits are not. Yep, I think, did we read that already? That's
Yes,
from you, yeah. Uh,
and
and
Arlene Adams. If you touch the comment, it will show up on the screen.
yeah. Oh, and then let's see. There's never
Safta Arlene says, can you see it?
the last.
Oh, the last comment.
Oh.
Um,
Mhm.
so I'll just read through. Safta Arlene says that is why being connected and invested in a righteous community is so important.
Most.
I think she's connecting to that conversation we were having earlier about
Mm-hmm.
being a sacred space, being with community, being
Right.
with your people. Yeah, like Chief US says there's never safety or comfort to be found in your historical enemy's backyard, even when you submit to their norms and curry favor. Moving on enemy ground sans ethnic based culture is treacherous.
Mm,
Mm, mm,
right.
mm, 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 mm. Huge piece. You have to have that piece. That it creates a boundary. It
Mhm.
creates a border. That culture is it dictates. It dictates how we function. It's a boundary. Build a wall. Yafe said, build a wall. That was 10:18. So that was a couple minutes ago. She said, build a wall.
Listen, sometimes we got to build that wall, and there's a time for it because sometimes we'll build a wall too, around people we don't need to build a wall because they're literally there trying to, And I think we all do that to the when it comes to mates, finding that right mate. We build a wall as soon as we start to feel like, oh my God, he's getting too close, and I'm not about to go through this again.
Mm-hmm.
You better build that 10-foot wall because they don't need to be jumping at all near you.
If you, all right, you, she's, you,
Mm,
this is in response to your point
yes.
of kodo. Kodo is anu like
Hmm.
churi
Right.
anu rock.
Yes. I hope you don't mind me sharing that. I
Of
just
course not. Like I think I have rings and so on. I just have
no,
them.
I'm just saying that part of the conversation.
Oh, well, I don't think so.
But ancestors go to war with each other. Some ancestors were against their own bloodline. Being bodiless doesn't equate to conscious evolution. As above, so below. There are wars in heavens and earth. Yes, indeed. Yes. Yes, because you have ancestors that when they were alive, they didn't mean you no good. And when they're gone, they still don't mean you no good. And they will try to torture you. Like,
You. Hmm?
so definitely, and those are the ones you have to, do the works to make sure they keep afar. So yes, most definitely. But it was just one of those things that was just like, whoa, I never put a thought process into that. So it definitely had me in alignment, like real quick. Like you don't just be entering them rooms when they trying to call up all everybody and anybody.
Right. And it puts a level of responsibility on us as well. Like if that's something that you engage in, you have to now say, do I know my ancestors? I was actually engaged in I used to, this was a couple years ago. I used to have like little talks with my father
Mhm.
about the lineage, like, just ancestry. I needed to learn about my grandfather because I never met any of my grandfathers. I didn't know them except for the one or two things that I've heard about them and the
Okay.
organizations or whatever you want to call it that they were affiliated to. Oh, so that of course puts a certain type of, yeah, it just puts ideas in your head,
Mhm.
right? As opposed
Mhm.
to knowing the truth. And I remember that was, I guess that was one of the tasks that I had to accomplish. And I don't want to say tasks because it was really good digging into, like who was my grandfather's mother,
Mhm.
who was my grandfather's father, my great grand, what, like what did they do? And seeing that there's like a line of educators and people who like to teach and impart knowledge and things like that, there on that line.
Mhm.
But also there are parts about it that are still, you know, they're question marks. And
Okay.
so then I have to say to myself, well, I don't know what that journey was like, and I don't know what you imputed into the bloodline. That of course would have been transferred to me.
Right.
So I have to also be responsible for what I do if I decide, okay, I'm calling on ancestors. Well, do you really know? The ancestors that you're calling on. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
about others, but myself too. Sorry. Pardon.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. That's it.
Oh, okay, okay. um, yeah, that's definitely something that well, I know personally that I'll be more mindful of. Because I wasn't, it's like it's not to say you didn't know. It's one of those things the thought was never put, I never put the thought or emphasized on that. But definitely do so now, of course.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yep, now I see it. Yeah, talked to with the energies and the paintings.
Okay. Yes, yes, yes. And she said one last thing, and then like we can close out. I always think about that when I dance.
Mm.
That listen to me.
Okay. Yes. Yes. With all the
Hmm. And there's a surge of energy. There's a surge. Can you hear me? I think you're frozen a little bit. Let's see. Oh boy. I think Sister Desira is a little bit frozen, but we'll keep moving until she jumps back on. When you mention that, Sister Yafe, and we, like we've danced together, and there's some dances like the Ogu dance. I'll never forget that. That's like, oh my goodness. Um, there is that surge of energy, and I do remember um, Chief shared one time, he's like, when you do certain dances, and this is long before, so, like I don't do those dances anymore. But um, we lost Jazira, but I'm sure she'll be back. And one of the things he mentioned was, when you do dances, whether it's you're doing it independently or you're doing it with a group, that constant, those movements, the motion, the gestures, right, the movement of the spine and the body, all of those movements, they they call forward an energy, right? They're connected to a particular energy. So that's also very similar to the use of sigils and the use of paintings or the use of symbols and paintings and things like that, that we may not know about, right? Very similar. We lost you for a second, but you're back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. My phone just kind of like bloop, restarted on its own. I
Oh,
guess, yeah, weird. I don't know what happened. See, I don't know who trying to mess with my energy up in here, but let me
oh,
tell you, where my palo santo, where my lighter at? Let me burn this energy out real quick.
oh my goodness. Palo Santo in Palo Santo in a place. Yeah, it that's interesting that you say that because it kind of goes back to Chief's point about what our concept of our space is. Um,
Mm,
you know, what the concept is of the space that we're in. Because I think about, what if it is fortified? Then, and think about like when you burn sage or things like that, like
hmm.
you windows, right? And you're doing that with a purpose.
Clear out.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Flee.
And yeah, I'm definitely, yeah, I think when you are living in the life of spiritual consciousness and you become aware of these things, it's so important that you do the work to constantly clear the energy and let things flow. I think one of the biggest thing that I feel like is so huge to always tap into is just the level of feng shui. Like I don't know if how like I don't think everybody really understand how powerful that is in a working space. For me, if like I want to get creative, if it's not clear,
Right.
if I don't feel the air flowing through evenly, it's stagnant. For me to sit down and say I'm going to get creative, I have to. And it's so funny because as artists, your space is not always going to be clean because you're working. Like if it's clean all the time, are you really doing anything?
No.
So my friend and I would always talk about, I'm about to clean up so I can make a new mess. You know what I mean? So like I will clean this spot out after I work on a project. I could clean it up. 10 seconds later, it looked like a tornado came through because now I'm working on something new. But if I don't do that, like my creative juices are not going to flow through. When you think about a bedroom, if it's like how they say don't put stuff under your bed, or if it's cluttered, then how are you going to sleep well? You know what I mean? So These are all the things that, they're so important for us to keep in mind and to keep in practice, just because it makes a huge difference.
True. I think you mentioned the bedroom. I think about how, like we create these little energy spots in us,
Hmm.
like laundry, for example. Like, you know, we should not actually have baskets of laundry in our bedrooms. Like it, because then when you think about your interaction all day, it,
Right.
it flows where you're interacting with people and energies, and you're also giving off energy, and there's that movement and it's
Hmm.
transfer, and it's housed, right? It's housed in you, but I can't help to think about how some of it gets transferred or even carried around. So, like I think about, and I heard someone say that one time, like you fold your clothes, and, just even the idea about feng shui, when you think about things like mirrors in your room, um, neutral colors in your room,
Mm.
especially a bedroom, because it makes sense. I know we like reds.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
stimulate. Which who doesn't want red in? I mean, come on, right? Yes. Who knows? Who? But it's so overly stimulating, especially considering the rooms where we go to like rest. You know,
Right. Hmm.
I remember there was a book I was reading actually on sleep,
Hmm.
and it was breaking down the reason, one of the biggest reasons why we sleep is so that the brain can actually process all of what we've gathered, and
Right.
it could actually become active
Hmm. Hmm.
in knowledge, not just information, because we took it in and we live stream like 10 different podcasts, and we ain't doing nothing with it. But you do need to rest so that the brain can assimilate, just like the body needs the stomach assimilates food, or the body assimilates food
Hmm.
the same way. And I mean, even that is food. The knowledge we take in, even that is food as well. You know? Yeah, so just like down to the colors, and it helping to boost rest, you know,
Right.
knowing
Hmm.
that we're resting. And I think about things like arrows, darts and arrows that form along angular surfaces. Like if you have a lot of angular surfaces in your room, and
Hmm.
facing doors and things like that, like all of that is part of like feng shui and
Right, right,
energy, and it's so much deeper, because then you have to think about where the sun rises, where the sun sets.
right. Yes, yes, yes.
It's a
Hmm.
science, actually.
I mean, leave it up to me. I personally feel like a bedroom should just be a bed, and that's it. That's my future
Hmm.
minimalist self speaking right now. It's just the bed. Like I will, if the a little bit of light is coming through in the evening time, like to me that's just too much.
Mm.
So I'm one of those who cover up any clocks or what have you that has like the bright, or I dim them down to the lowest, because when it's dark in the room I want it to be completely dark. So for me it's just like, let's just keep it empty, let it just be the bed as well, and let that just be the actual resting place.
Yeah, listen, I'm so glad that we started season 2 because of sovereign needs, and we're exploring all of these additional topics and just kind of spreading
Hmm.
ourselves out, because um, we get into all of the different things that affect our wellness, right? And
Right.
not just what we eat, not just nutrition, but all of
Hmm.
the things in our environment. So
Even what we wear. So with the entrepreneur program that I'm in, that was something when just really putting down roots of my brand and, building up the story, and always thinking about the spiritual aspect of clothing. I've always thought about, I definitely want to have the the spiritual wares for those who need it for certain ceremonies, the all whites, or different colors. But one of the things that definitely stood out for me, clothing is a part of our wellness. It's a part of our self-care,
Mm,
right? If you
yes.
get up in the morning and you just throw on any random clothes and you're just like looking all kind of crazy, you're gonna feel all kind of crazy throughout the day. Because majority of the day you're like, ooh, what did I throw on?
Right.
Ooh, these people looking at me like I'm crazy. But you wake up, typically, I it's just the same thing with food. What do I feel like today? What do I feel like I wanna, when you think about food, you start to think about the texture that you desire. When you think about clothes, you start to think about how you want to feel. I don't feel like wearing the loose clothes today. I want to feel, whatever that mood that you wake up in, you're automatically translating to what you want to wear. If you're extra, you want to wear something extra.
Right.
You know, I may decide tomorrow I want to wear that blouse with the sleeve that comes out and everybody has to send 10 feet away from me just because it's so big because I feel extra today. You know what I mean? But when you think about it, how you dress when you step out of that house, if you feel comfortable and you look in that mirror and you're like, oh, girl, you look good, you're going to walk around the whole day feeling like that. Your confidence is up, and then let's not talk about if people are complimenting you all day. It's just that level of more like that confidence that just comes out of you. So I always feel like even that brings out a level of great energy if you do it according to your personality with not caring what everybody else is going to say. I
Right.
had a cousin of mine that used to say, your clothes don't have to match. Why does everything have to match? So she wore things how she felt, and that was her personality, and it came out and she wore it well. But if I did it, it wouldn't look right because that wasn't my personality. You feel me? But when you see that and you feel it, you walk with that level of confidence. So that's definitely part of wellness. Like if I'm going to eat something that makes me feel good, I'm wearing something that makes me feel good. When I greet you, you're going to feel all of that. You know what I mean? So that's something that is part of my branding, I guess you could say. Clothing is part of your wellness. It's part of your well-being.
It is. It is. You're talking, and I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the how difficult it is to actually find pure fabric, clothing with pure fabric. I will say there are certain. I do like certain fabrics with this.
Yes. Like
I like that.
polyester, me and polyester, we no friends. We are not friends.
And we shouldn't be. It's
Hmm.
so, but it is so. I will say again, it is so difficult to find pure cotton, and not just not. There are fabrics that mimic cotton so well.
Very well.
It
Hmm.
is, you have to, and I had to pull back several times and say, what is happening? I had to learn how to distinguish it. And you
Hmm.
do feel different, like you do
Hmm.
feel different. And, thinking about natural fabrics and linen and so on,
Yes.
that stuff is so expensive now. And I say to myself, I remember when corduroy and linen were not expensive. That was not the
Right.
material.
Hmm. Hmm.
Not have Vico, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Vico, cervicals, and
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
the different
It
synthetic.
Oh, the way they make it now, you're like, wait, this is not your grandmother's polyester.
No, it's not.
It's not your grandmother. That level of stiffness, and I call it plastic fabric. Because you put a match to it, you'll see how it melts and harden like plastic.
True.
And so, and then, of course, I can go in for days on all of that and how it affects the environment and
True.
all of that. But yeah, like that the way it feels on your body. Imagine having pure cotton with nothing in it and it's natural dye. That makes a huge difference.
And not sprayed, because some of the companies they spray. I don't know if it's for preservation, but we'll definitely go into more about
For
clothes,
sure.
and really dig into how that affects health, wellness, and in what way.
Hmm.
Before we can close. If you have anything else that you want to share or build on, we can. But you shared something about what will you wear, and I find it interesting. I just started working at I'm an educator again in the classroom. And I will say, I do not plan my clothing for the strong, but I do iron my clothing for the strong. So
Mm.
I iron everything. I'm sorry, my father has been like a iron everything, starch, darn, yeah, what do you call it? Darks in the pants, uh,
The crease.
the crease in the
Yeah.
pants. Of course, that's no, like that's so dated, but you know, yeah. One woman said to me, every time I see you, it wasn't a compliment. I didn't see it as a compliment because it's like, you don't even know. I have four things, okay? And you over here talking about, oh, like, I don't see you. You have a whole lot of clothes. I don't see you wear anything to us. I said, miss, you don't even know. Do you even know? Do you even know that when I go to the closet, it is, I just, here, put this and this together. Boom,
And you just
get up,
do it.
and
You.
I walk out the house. I mean, I'm not saying I'm like your sister who's like, oh, they mismatch. And I will say, I like to mix and match with
Hmm.
fabric
Hmm. Hmm.
colors. I find purple and red interesting. I find purple and green very alluring.
Mm.
You know, but yeah, even different what do you call it, designs, like plaid with what do you call it, hound's tooth, right? Like, I mean, they don't go good together, but
But you can
some
make it work.
people, they put it on and they make it
Make.
work, and they're like, but I know it's not gonna look good on me. You know, floral prints. Oh my goodness, stop it with the floral print. I don't like it. I don't at all. I can't with the floral print. But there's some that's nice, and I'm like, oh, that looks good on you.
But not for me.
Not for me, excuse me. But I just found it interesting that she said that, and I said, as you shared, I was like, let me share, because I had to double take a while. I was like, you don't even know. Even know. You've probably seen the same thing 3 times, but it's just a
The
different.
way you put it together.
Yeah, Mm. But it's important. It's important and I
Yeah.
think about there's a there we have a dress code, and part of the dress code they keep sharing it, like there's certain things, look professional, look a certain way, and
Hmm.
I see what you're saying, like that should not necessarily affect or be a billboard for who you are. But
Hmm.
it's different when you come in a space looking frumpy and just like a
Yeah.
old dirty this and a old, like just a t-shirt, and that's what you wear every day.
Hmm.
But you're trying to imbue inspiration, and you're trying to imbue motivation and professionalism with youth. And I know it's an institution, so I'm wrong because it's a whole different level of conversation that can be had around, you know, having them be compliant in a way,
Right. 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 Right.
right? And that's not what I'm condoning, but just be proud of like how you present. And
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that's important. I think that's important.
Definitely.
The
If
Yafe says purple and green is the hero villain. Yeah.
ah, wait, I have a blouse like that. Oh, you have. Wait, are you speaking of the blouse with the big puffy sleeve? Because listen, we could get down on that one.
Balloon, like the balloon sleeves. Balloon.
Hmm.
This is Yafe. She's probably talking about feathers or something. I don't know. Plumes. Plumage. That's
Listen,
plumage.
hey, do it. Be extra. I'll encourage it.
Of course. This was really great. And I know you had to take a little bit of time, well, a lot of time away from your working, but I will that, like you having this outlet inspires you, and All of what you're sharing inspires it. All of what we're sharing inspires everyone.
Indeed.
Continue to tune into the Sovereignties podcast. We have way more topics than you could even imagine, and way more things to build on. You're going to see additional co-hosts, so the co-hosts will switch up and change up a little bit. But Sister Jazara will definitely be back and continue
Yes.
hitting conversations with us. And the other thing I wanted to share is if you want to replay, of course, or you want to listen to audio alone, we will be loading on all platforms, all streaming platforms. So feel free. And I will place Sister Jazira's information, her email, and her website and Instagram in the description, so you can go there and find us, follow us on every platform you could think about, and yeah, support us.
Indeed. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, this was lovely. Um, I feel it feels natural. At first I was like, oh my gosh, I may be doing a live. I don't know what to do. I'm feeling kind of nervous. But this is my sister and we're just having conversation. Ain't no different. We're just having it in front of a whole bunch of people. That's it.
That's right.
Nothing new. Nothing new.
It's good. It's good. I appreciate it. And now we have even more opportunity to speak, because sometimes you know how it is. The time goes, but you know what? I always appreciate that. No matter how long it's been, you
Yeah.
and I get back on that phone, and it's just like,
I
don't even
nothing.
for me.
Listen, we haven't seen each other in over 5 years, probably
Yeah,
5, 6 years. So from seeing each other almost like every year for a certain time, and then this huge break. So it's definite. I told you I came across the card that you sent me after my father passed. I have it in a special little basket with all my little spiritual stuff, my incense and stuff. So when I opened it up, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this sistership, like very appreciative, very appreciative. Yeah, so I'm glad we continuing it on this platform, and let's continue building. I got a lot to learn, a lot to share, so as we journey on, the conversation will just continue to be fire.
indeed, indeed. And she says it. He says this was beautiful and will only advance and blossom. Keep it up.
Yes, give
Thank
thanks.
you for that inspiration. Peace, peace, everyone. Greetings and
Peace.
rest well.